conversation today, my guest, still in his 50s, has been described as the doyen of Indian industry. His conglomerate has produced more than 6 million two- and three-wheelers that traverse the roads in India and abroad. They manufacture a scooter every 18 seconds. He is inheritor of a grand tradition from the great Jamnalal Bajaj. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Rahul Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj, the Prime Minister has recently made this appeal to industry to participate in his satyagraha to end corruption. What has been your response to this?
Of course, I read about it and he spoke about it on 15th of August from the Red Fort. And then I was in that meeting on 16th morning in the Vigyan Bhavan when he came to our CII meeting. And I have, and I think a lot of people I know have responded to it very positively after recognizing that the fact that corruption is bad, the fact that it exists is not new. The fact that any leader of any standing would say that this is an evil we must get rid of. The fact remains corruption appears to have increased. I don't think anybody has a measure of that, but in times of Jawaharlal Nehru, I'm sure there was corruption, but the extent we believe, or the feeling amongst the people was much less. And it's only from the early 70s or end of 60s that for various political and other reasons it increased. And it almost became that it's no longer a bad thing, and one was not ashamed to do that. And right from the top, in every field, political, business, as he said rightly, the Prime Minister, there has to be a giver if there is a taker.
Do you feel that there's a greater seriousness of purpose now?
One doesn't know. It's one man talking about it. And I think some of us have been telling him for the last couple of months that keeping in mind the kind of coalition government that exists, keeping in mind the way Mr. Gujral did become a Prime Minister, that perhaps the right thing for him to do is to say and then try to do what he thinks is right. That's good for India, good for Indian people. Whether it will have an effect and what effect, we'll know over a period of time.
Well, we're all victims of corruption, and people who feel this commitment to India and the 50th year of its independence would obviously like to see this evil end. Are you willing to stand up and be counted and put yourself on the line by revealing a name that may then compromise your business interests?
We are not perfect in Bajaj Group, and Rahul Bajaj is not Jamnalal Bajaj. That's very, very clear. Having said that, we do not give money. Bajaj Auto has not given money to anybody to get a work done in the last 20 years, 25 years since I have been CEO since 68. Whether to a top politician, whether to a top bureaucrat, or even to a small factories inspector. Not only because I didn't want to do that, but because I had to uphold a legacy. I couldn't do many positive things as good as Jamnalalji or Kamal Nayanji. I couldn't. But I at least thought this I should not do. And I was very lucky that I was looking after a company called Bajaj Auto, which makes scooters and motorcycles and three-wheelers. Government is not a buyer. And barring in those times of socialism, I didn't need to go to government except for an industrial license or import license, and I did not give money for that. I can say that categorically. Let somebody get up and say, even privately, that I gave him money. So I'm not the right example. If I find somebody gives me money, asks me for money, I obviously won't give it. So corruption should be attacked very rightly, as the Prime Minister has done first. And if a top man asks me, I would like to believe that I will give his name, and I couldn't care two hoots. But unfortunately, I don't need anything from a top man, and with my reputation in the negative sense being what it is, I don't think I'll be asked.
To what degree, as an entrepreneur, have you felt inhibited by the government? There have been times when the government has placed limitation on the number of scooters you could manufacture. There's a changed economic environment. To what degree do you still feel inhibited?
Not at all. But from the time I joined Bajaj Auto in January 65 and became a CEO in 68, till 85, completely, the word is, I would not like to use the word inhibited, not at all, but disgusted, a stronger word, and frustrated that I can't make as much as I should. In fact, once we got a notice from MRTP Commission or from the Government Company Law Board, you have exceeded by more than 25% your license capacity. You were allowed to exceed 25%. And I got so disgusted. Of course, we did all the legalities and this and that, and afterwards completely we got exonerated. I don't know how and why. But I replied that my grandfather, grandmother, father and mother were in British jails for freedom struggle. Here there's a product I'm making for which there's a 10-year delivery period. By delay, either the guy has to wait for 10 years, which nobody does, or he has to pay a black market premium to some broker. So if I have to go to jail for excess production, I'm ready to do that. I will continue to produce more. I had no marketing department in Bajaj Auto. How could you have a marketing department when for 25 years I had a 10-year waiting period for my scooters and three-wheelers? So I felt very frustrated and disgusted with the system. And I used to openly talk about it. And in my speeches, some are written speeches, talked of liberalization. Today I am called protectionist because of Bombay Club. But I was the one who was asking for liberalization till now. And today I am asking for further liberalization when others were afraid to ask. In Madame Gandhi's time, it was not that easy for industrialists to get up and say, I want liberalization. From mid-80s, when Rajiv Gandhi came to power, he couldn't do for various reasons because it got derailed, he got some wrong advisors, the Bofors thing came in, so he couldn't do what he would have done from 91, which Narasimha Rao ji did because Rajiv was no longer there. But he did start some liberalization. All these foreign two-wheeler manufacturers came in mid-80s. Maruti Suzuki came in mid-80s. The LCV4 Japanese came in mid-80s. And that's when we got, for the first time, the expansion that we wanted. Otherwise, if you to ask for 100,000, you'd get 20,000. And it would take 3 years to get it.
There is the feeling that Indian industry has failed to respond to foreign competition and is now crying foul. And you mentioned the Bombay Club has taken this position, has called for a level playing field. What is this notion of level playing field?
Whatever it is, the Prime Minister accepts it and said so on the 16th, completely supporting that notion. So we have a new member of the Bombay Club.
But the notion of level playing field is, in a sense, antithetical to the notion of free enterprise and capital and the globalization
I think
of the
we should
economy.
change the word. Yeah, absolutely, I fully agree with you. It should not be a level playing field. It should be a field tilted to Indian industry, in favor of Indian industry, if I may say so. But the demand for so-called level playing field has existed from last 2.5, 3 years. It has nothing to do with slowing down of the economy, when the economy was growing, when two-wheelers were growing at the rate of 20% per annum. Plus, it has nothing to do with my industry, as some people think who don't think. Because everybody who matters in the two-wheeler industry, Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki and Vespa, the only four who matter in the world, came in here in 85, 86. Kinetic Honda is 51%. So it doesn't affect me. What affects me is the marketplace. Whether I'm doing better or worse, I'm still the leader. Fair enough, that's a separate issue. But yes, I have a strong belief in the fact that the liberalization which started from 91, went on till 94 was very good. That's what we were asking. I'm a strong believer in the fact, which doesn't get highlighted by the media, that today there are many areas where the bureaucracy, red tape, infrastructure, financial sector, labor relations, and privatization of public sector units, where we need much more reform. Unfortunately, today there is a consensus amongst the political parties and the trade unions that there will be no further liberalization in the 6 areas I referred to, which is what every Indian industrialist wants and every foreign industrialist wants. Our view is wherever Indian industry cannot do it, we must get foreign capital. For example, infrastructure. Projects requiring an investment of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 crores. How many Indian industries can do that? Maybe one person will do it, not everybody. हम भी नहीं करें, आपको भी नहीं करने दें. This beggar than neighbor policy is not good for India, not good for Indian people. There are certain technologies in the hands of very few people. They will not give it to anybody, including to an Indian company, unless they own it, control it. If we need that technology, let them come in with majority equity, with 100% equity. You can't do it anyway. You don't have the technology. But I believe India and Indian companies can get whatever technology they want without giving foreign majority equities. Bajaj Auto is still the leader in two-wheeler field. I have no foreign equity. No foreign company having equity except a GDR issue. Telco is like that. They have a small equity from foreign, but they are an Indian company. They are leaders. Tisco is like that. Reliance is like that. The top good companies are like that. And I want 100 such companies to be Indian multinationals by the year 2020. Whereas if you keep allowing them 51% or more, in that case, over a period of time, out of say the top, 200 companies in India, 70-80% will become foreign owned and controlled, and that's not good for India or the Indian people. And that's where I say this waving of a red flag of consumer interest is misleading.
Do you feel that the much talked about brain power that India has is in fact adequate and sufficient to respond to the challenges of liberalization and competition?
I define it in two ways. We say we are the country with the third or the fourth largest pool of skilled manpower in the world. Now I divide it in two ways. Brain power today, India is tops. Whenever an Indian goes abroad, and there are thousands and thousands all over the world, including the United States, whether he's a doctor, engineer, businessman, he is on the top of the world. It proves the fact that he does well. Here he doesn't. Environment wrong, labor policies wrong, infrastructure wrong. That's why he doesn't succeed here. Little bit of work ethic wrong, inability to work in a team wrong. We know what we should do, but we cannot implement it wrong. Leadership doesn't exist. That's the problem in India. If there's a company in India, if Bajaj Auto did not have its own R&D department, I would keep importing technology. I would not be able to absorb and assimilate. I have a strong R&D department. I develop my own models, but I also, why should I only do it myself? The world does it. Honda does it. Piaggio does it. General Motors does it. They import technology. So do I. I'll keep importing it for 30 years, but I'll know what I'm importing. The fellow knows who is importing and that he knows what he's importing. So I'm not taken for a ride. Otherwise, they'll charge me 3 times the price and give me an inferior product. But that you have to develop. Knowledge comes with experience. Exposure for R&D in India is limited.
You've talked about your inheritance, and you've said how in your work, if you haven't always been able to affirm it positively, you've certainly, it has restrained the negative element. What has this inheritance meant to you? What does it mean to you today?
I don't know. It's very difficult to explain that in brief, but it means to me much more than anything else in this world. And that's something where one gets emotional, and I don't like to get emotional. But yes, what I inherited, and I was very young when my grandfather died, Jamnalalji, and it was he who brought Mahatma Gandhi, for example, to our hometown Wardha, which is near Nagpur. Gandhiji was in Sabarmati in Ahmedabad. Everybody doesn't know as to why he shifted from Sabarmati to Wardha. It's a long story, but in 1930, when he got into this salt satyagraha and went to a Dandi march, he took a vow, I will not return to Sabarmati till India became independent. And my grandfather had been telling him for years before that to come to Wardha, and he used to say, how can I come to Wardha, Jamnalal, I am in the Sabarmati. Now my grandfather was joking with him, said, now you have nowhere to go. When he went to Dadi March in 1930, and that's when he shifted to Wardha, and Sevagram was our property, etc., etc. So Jamnalalji was very close to him, and Vinoba came, everybody came because of Gandhi to Wardha, and Jamnalalji was a different kind of man. If it was me, I wouldn't have behaved like that. He was a saintly man. He died in 1942, very young. He didn't even live to see independence. And he gave himself to the constructive activities of Gandhiji, not politics. Because freedom struggle was involved, Gandhiji roped him in a little bit in that. And Congress Working Committee's meetings and everything took place in Wardha because of Gandhiji. So I think it's not only Jamnalalji, but Gandhi and Vinoba. In Bajaj family, apart from Jamnalalji, of course, Gandhi is considered as the Kul Pita. And Vinoba is the Kul Guru, because that's what Jamnalalji took, and we have always continued this thing. And we are conscious that we perhaps are not ideal inheritors of that legacy. And when Jamnalalji died in 1942, he left my father in terms of net wealth, nothing. Because he had given away most of it to Gandhi and Gandhian activities. But he left a tremendous legacy. Although business was started by Jamnalalji, but Kamalyanji, my father, who died in 1972, he really built it up, and I think I'm very, in all humility, if I may use 2 contradictory words, in all humility, and I'm very proud of that legacy, being very conscious that I can't take credit for that.
When running a business honorably, running it honestly without being corrupt, and running it effectively, providing employment, generating products for the community, is making a substantial contribution. But in terms of the much sort of larger vision of social responsibility, and the finance minister talked about this in the budget some months ago, of industry, how do you see this inheritance manifesting itself?
It gets manifested in 2 ways. And I'm not again implying that we're doing it perfect either of the 2 ways. One way, and which to me is not unimportant, that's what you have referred to, is you do your job in industry if that's what you are doing properly. According to me, the objective of a company is not to make profit. And I say that as a chairman and managing director of Bajaj Auto, which is one of the most profitable companies in India. I don't consider profit a dirty word, and thank goodness neither does the government anymore. Profiteering may be bad, not profits. But, so we are one of the most profitable companies in India, And I say making profit is not an objective of a company. To satisfactorily meet the needs of your customers, whoever it is, millions of customers, that's the people, that's the citizen. To satisfactorily meet his needs is your objective. Cost, quality, technology. And if you do that satisfactorily, if you meet that objective satisfactorily, automatically you will maximize, at least in the medium, in the long term, if not in the short term, your profits. And the Bajaj Group spends probably crores, 5, 7, 8, 10 crores a year on various causes, from running schools, colleges, hospitals all over the country, mainly in Maharashtra, because we are situated in Maharashtra. Our hometown is Wardha. Our original hometown is somewhere near Jaipur, in a place called Sikar in Rajasthan, and we are very proud of that. But for generations ago, my family shifted to Wardha. So we have so many colleges there, many institutions started by my grandfather. We have a school in Pune, we have hospitals in Wardha, Aurangabad, where Bajaj Auto has a plant, and in Pune. We have given, in the last 3 years, we have given 5 crores, 7 crores of rupees. So, but rupees is not important. Rural development, wherever we have a plant, villages around it, we do a lot of rural development and a lot of activities. But this, there is no limit. In a country of 950 million people, where 50% live on an income of $1 a day, 36 rupees a day, there is no limit. Why 200 villages? Why don't you take up 20,000 villages or 40,000 villages? So I think you have to maintain a balance. These are the areas where in India we have stopped trusting government, unfortunately. But these are the areas where NGOs and government have to come in. Government has to get off business, get out of business. That's our job. That's not the government's job, except in some defense, in some very few areas. And let them take care of education and health and family planning. If they take care of health, education, family planning, and some infrastructure, because private sector cannot fully meet the requirements of infrastructure, I think this country will move, will really, it has tremendous potential. My blood boils. Where are we on a per capita basis? Not in the top 100. We say we are the 5th largest economy in the world on purchasing power parity basis. And because we are 950 million people, what's so great? We'll become 4th largest in the year 2020. I think, okay, it's nothing. Yes, in the year 2020, on a per capita income basis, even on purchasing power parity, you should be in the top 10. That's what India needs, and that's what we can become. There's no reason for us to aim at anything less. We should aim at that, but requires a work ethic, requires teamwork, requires our ability to implement what should be done, and all this needs leadership. Leadership in every field, not only political leadership. Business, media, journalism, medicine, law, and at every level. Politician doesn't mean only chief minister and prime minister. Every politician, the fellow who works in the panchayat level. We want leadership. If we get it, India will come back to its original glory. If we don't, we'll deserve to be what we are, what we have become. And instead of only political imperialism, there will be, yes, there will be economic imperialism, because if you can't take care of yourself, somebody else will.
Mr. Bajaj, you have been talking about leadership, and it's been reported that you've already set in motion a process of relinquishing your own leadership of Bajaj Auto. What prompts that? You're 57 years old. Isn't it sort of rather early to begin to?
59. I wish I was 57. When I was 57, I wished I was 55. So I'm 59, though I'm happy to hear 57. I'm going to die with my shoes on, whether I die at 60 or 80. That's clear. I'm not going to retire and suck my thumb. But leadership role, if at all I have any leadership qualities, that cannot be delegated. That the fellow has to become a leader. So I'm not talking of that. The CEO, I was the CEO of Bajaj Auto, I am still technically, that I'm letting go. It used to be said, I think there was an exaggeration, but it used to be said from 1968 till recently that nothing moved in Bajaj Auto, not a brick moved. I was the leader, and I was looking after the day-to-day operations of the company. Not the way, it's nothing special. Ratan Tata doesn't look like that. He can't. He's got so many companies to look. So that I'm giving away, and I think 80% of that I've given away. And the remaining 20 also in the next year or two, I will give away to the next generation, to my brothers, cousins, professionals, as far as till I'm alive. Yes, if you are an owner, other things being equal, you may rise faster. I got to become CEO partly at a time earlier than somebody else because I happen to be an owner. I recognize that and I'm proud of that. I'm not ashamed of that. Somebody else may not like that. But I will not give till I am alive in Bajaj Auto a position to anybody, including a family, including my son or my brother, who is not qualified according to me, who is not capable of holding that position. Because not only is it not correct, not only is it not good for 30,000 shareholders, but Bajaj Auto shares a major wealth of Bajaj family, major wealth. 8,000 crores is the market cap of Bajaj Auto, 8,000 crores. Whatever percentage we have, it's a hell of a lot of money. I have more than 5 shares in Bajaj Auto. And if that 1,000 or 900 rupee share, which is a 10 rupee share, valued at 900 rupees after all the bonuses, say becomes 50, your wealth disappears. So it's in your selfish interest in today's competitive environment, when you can't be presumptuous, that you're not going to let your son take care of anything if he's not qualified to do that. So subject to that, yes, I want to hand over. Whom I hand over to is another issue. But yes, I think in the family there are very competent people, young, and that's what is required. Maybe I'm past my prime. Maybe I'm told you are losing market share. I'm told that technology, Bajaj Auto is very good in this, but technology is obsolete. So maybe a 59-year-old should step aside for these 30-year-olds, 27-year-olds, 40-year-olds who can take the company to still greater heights.
You said you want to die with your shoes on. What kind of shoes do you want to be wearing then?
It will be basically shoes which are filled by me in the field of industrial development, economic development, India's place in the international scene. I can't become a doctor or a lawyer, though I'm qualified to be a lawyer, but obviously I'm not going to start being a lawyer. And I definitely have no intention, though my father was a member of parliament for 3 terms, and my grandfather was a member of the Congress Working Committee. I have no desire whatsoever to get into politics. But it will be, that's what I said, changing from day-to-day working of a company to I spend more time in industry associations.
Do you think or think about or fear death?
No more, I guess, and no less than most people of my age and with my background. Means what I mean to say is from a certain kind of family, certain kind of education. And I only think one thing. I don't say again I succeed. The thing that I think is, God, let me not be afraid of death. I'm not saying yet I've reached the stage that I'm not afraid of death, but I definitely want to die in my sleep. I don't want to suffer before dying like most other people, but take the fear of death away from you, and that's what one is trying to work on. But I don't brood on that, and I don't worry about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rajiv.